Our guest this week is someone I have had the privilege of knowing as a business partner, and her journey is nothing short of inspiring. Born and raised in the northeast of England, she faced a tough childhood but found solace and direction in the unlikeliest of places, Liverpool, where she studied popular music. She claims she was academically confused, but I'm thinking, how lucky to study music in the home of the Beatles. Throughout her life, she's been guided by the love and wisdom of her mother, who always told her through the hardships that none of it was her fault and she could become anything she wanted to be. Now a mother of three herself, she carries forward that same spirit of empowerment and resilience with her own children. As the talent acquisition head for EMEA and APJ at a dynamic tech company, she's a role model both professionally and personally. Outside of her work, she's deeply committed to the cause of domestic violence awareness, serving as a trustee of the Employers Initiative on Domestic Violence in the UK. Oh, and did I mention her love for taxidermy? Spend just a few minutes with her and you'll start to believe that John Lennon's vision in Imagine isn't that far off, especially with people like her bringing that dream to life every day. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome Fay Wilberforce. My guest today is the Director of Talent Acquisition for Ivanti for EMEA and Asia Pacific, Japan. Fay Wilberforce, welcome to my podcast, Why, Who, and Where, in which we look at success the way it should be looked at. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Zubin.
Faye, there's so much information on all of us on the web. I mean, there's LinkedIn and all of that. So I usually look to start these discussions, to probably when you were a child. And I notice you then went and did college, and was it music and
Popular music.
popular music?
Popular music, yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
was
and
vocationally confused, academically confused. I did a
my
degree
daughter
in pop music.
my daughter and I always say that the English have made the best. I mean, we look at all the bands and everything, and the all the best ones have come from England.
Well, I
Uh,
studied in Liverpool, home of the Beatles. So if you're going to
exactly,
study popular music, where else to do it but
exactly.
in
Where
Liverpool?
the
It was
mecca,
amazing.
the mecca of popular music, I guess.
Yeah.
So, walk us through, walk us through childhood, what it was growing up, and how it probably has panned out into what you do today.
Yeah. So I was born in a town in the northeast of England called South Shields. South Shields is a beautiful town. It's based near the border of Scotland, lovely beach seaside town. I was born in the 1980s, and at the time, beautiful as the town is, it was undergoing the Thatcher government, which meant that things like our coal mine was closed down. So there's great poverty to this day, actually. There is significant deprivation in the northeast of England. Um, my father actually left the family, just walked out, decided I'm leaving my marriage when I was 6 weeks old. So for a very, very long time, it was just me and my mum. My mum worked as a care assistant, looking after old people. And so, yeah, it was just me and my mum. She remarried, and unfortunately, a lot of my childhood was marked by incidents of domestic abuse. So growing up could be a struggle. We struggled financially. We struggled with situations in the home. Um, but actually, I think one thing that my mum's excellent parenting did was she always instilled in me that whatever adversity there was that was happening in our lives, and there was a lot, she always she always reminded me and let me know that I wasn't to blame. It wasn't our fault and that it was wrong. And I think that's been really, really formative and shaped everything about me because I was determined to never see myself as a victim. And I think because of that, I pushed myself. I really, really pushed myself. Didn't want to be defined as a person from being from a poor area. And I didn't want to be held back in anything that I did. So as a kid, I always, always pushed myself. I I was never really bothered about being first place or being a winner, but I always wanted to be the best and to know that I'd done the best. So studying, I really, really focused in on those subjects that I was strong at. I was really, really good at humanities and English and drama. And so I pushed myself into those. I pushed myself into every single extracurricular activity that I could do. The local theatre set up free drama classes over the summer. So I remember when I was like 11, putting my rucksack on and going down there, or the library would have a reading club and I would push myself into that. I mean, here's an interesting fact for you. I joined a march and pipe band and learnt to play the bagpipes when I was
Wonderful.
12
Did
because
you
it
did
was an
you actually play
opportunity.
the pipes? Like really?
Not now, I don't. And I think my neighbours are very grateful of that, Zubin.
Uh,
But yeah, it was just, I just wanted to experience because I knew there was so much more than just the life that I had. And I think by throwing myself into extra stuff and learning, it meant I could escape. I used to escape into books. I used to read a phenomenal amount, but I could escape anything that was happening at home by adventuring out and exploring new opportunities and new things to try and push myself and see that actually there is opportunity and there is life outside of what otherwise I could have been, I suppose, trapped in. Um, so hence why when I got to 18, I'd got the grades and I decided I would go to university. I was one of the first people in my family to go to university. And it was funny, because now I could kick myself because I look back and I'm like, I got really good. I got like all A's and B's in my grades. I did really, really well. I could have gone to a really good university and stuff. I just had no idea. What do you study at university? What does university mean? And I didn't really have anybody to kind of give me advice on, what a good university looks like and how going to a good university can open doors for you later in your career. So I went and did some day trips to places that I liked the sound of, and Liverpool was one of those places. And I signed up to, actually, interestingly, to do cultural studies. I'd I'd always been fascinated with other worlds. I mentioned about escaping and reading a lot. And so I love the idea that people had a different way of life. I love my job now because I get to talk to people from all over the world, from different cultures, and get an insight. So I've always been really, really interested in that. So I went to do cultural studies. But when I went there, the faculty from the popular music contacted me because they saw that I'd done some DJing work, because it's something that I was passionate about and I love music. So they're like, would you consider doing a joint honours degree? So hence I ended up on that path of doing culture studies and popular music studies joint honours in Liverpool. So at the age of 18, I packed my bags. I left South Shields, which was all I'd ever known, and got on the train and went to Liverpool to start my 3 years bachelor's degree. Um, it was it was really tough, actually, because what I soon realized when I got to Liverpool was, oh, I actually have to pay for this. I have to pay my way. And again, I suppose when you grow up with not a lot of money, you never really get money lessons from your parent as to how to
Yep.
manage, because money in my house was something that if it came in, you spent it quick. before it got spent on alcohol. So, so literally, it was something to be enjoyed when you had it because it was a bit of a novelty. So I remember getting there, and I got my student loan. It was about £1,200, and I had to pay £900 in rent for my first term. So I was like, oh, I've got 300 quid to last me for 12 weeks. So
Mhm.
very quickly, yeah. So very quickly it was like, okay, maybe I'm not going to have exactly the same university experience as a lot of my friends who are like out with their mum and dad's credit cards, partying. So I worked my butt off. It was all I'd ever known anyways. And I worked really, really hard. At one point I had 3 jobs while at university, but worked hard, played hard, and yeah, and then got my degree at the end of it. So that was 3 years that I spent in Liverpool.
I'm still enamored by what your degree is called and the opportunity to study popular music. I think, look, having in the little time we work together as business partners, um, I think you're an incredibly culturally aware person. You have empathy for different cultures, and I think
Mm,
maybe that's played a part in that.
yeah.
Um, you know, I mean,
I
so
think
much
it played a
beauty.
part. I also think, though, actually, just my own, it wasn't just my degree, it was an interest, it was something I enjoyed, but it actually just speaking with people. I've always loved talking with people and learning about different ways of lives. The area that I'm from in South Shields has got a huge Bangladeshi community, and I've got loads of friends who are from that community. I've got lots of friends who have a Yemeni heritage, and I love to learn about different ways of life, and how people communicate has always really interested me as well. So I suppose that's what pushed me to pursue studying culture at university. It's funny because when I did my degree, I was like, oh gosh, maybe I've done something that's not going to support me in a career afterwards. And I'd done some marketing work while at university. I don't know how I landed into this, but I ended up working for a marketing agency, which was great fun. So I thought, oh, I'm going to end up in marketing as a career.
That is your
Um,
first job. Was that your first job?
while I was at university, I
Yeah.
worked part-time for a
Okay.
marketing agency as well, doing some brand management. And so I thought I actually had an opportunity when I graduated to interview for that marketing agency and go and work full-time for them. So relocate to London and go and work for them. But the day I was supposed to travel down was when it was just bizarre. It was the 7th of July bombing atrocities in London.
Yes,
Um, and so I cancelled my train and my interview because I was like, oh, I just totally just was scared. I was like, I don't want to go to London.
totally
Um,
understandable.
yeah, and so I put that off and was like, okay, well, I'll put my CV out there and just see what approaches me, see what happens. And I got called by a executive search firm who were looking for somebody to move to Yorkshire and join them as a researcher. Um, I'd never heard of recruitment agencies before. I didn't know what that meant. Couldn't really quite get my head around it. I mean, I think like most people, I didn't grow up of dreaming of becoming a recruitment consultant. Like most people,
I'm yet to meet one.
I know I've never met one
I've
yet who was
never met
like,
one.
nah.
Never.
I mean, I certainly at the age of, sort of like 11, 12, 13, I didn't dream of putting on a pinstripe suit and a neck scarf and getting myself off down the local recruitment agency. It just didn't factor. I didn't know what recruitment agencies were. But I just got on a train and I went and met them, and they put me through the most intense interview process I think I've been through in my career. And they were asking me things like, what motivates you to get out of bed on a morning? And I was sitting there as a kid, like 21. I was like, oh, and so I was just really, really authentic and just honest. I was like, I just want to make me mum proud. I remember they laughed when I said that, but they just grilled me and grilled me and grilled me. And then after about 5 interviews, they called me up and they offered me the job. So I was like, okay, so I'm moving to Harrogate, which is in Yorkshire. So I packed a bag, hopped on a train, found myself a room to rent, and I moved to Harrogate. So
Wonderful.
yeah, so did my first gig there, and that was yeah, that was eye-opening. It was my first foray into search. The hours were really, really long, um, and it was tough, but I loved meeting people, and I really just again, just it's unusual for me to sit and talk like this because normally I'm the one sitting just listening, listening and listening, picking up on cues, asking the questions, understanding more and more and more about people. And I just absolutely flourished doing that. I just loved finding out about people, finding out and then finding out, what do businesses want and would it align with them and would it be the right move for them? I loved doing the job. It was personally, it was quite challenging. They put me on the lowest salary that you could. I think I was like, I think I was looking the other day. I think I was on about the equivalent of £14,000 a year. So I literally got something like £900 a month wage. And I had to spend, I think it was about £700 on my rent. So I had like £300 left a month to feed myself, pay for travel. And it was just, I was just so poor. I remember just working 40, 50 hours a week and be like, oh, well, I'm going to be eating toast for my dinner again tonight. It was just, I was like working through it. It was so hard. So I did a year there and learned so much. It was just the most phenomenal, tough but phenomenal introduction to recruitment and talent acquisition. And I met my husband. He wasn't my husband, actually, my boyfriend, and he lived down south. And I'd always said, oh, I thought I would end up in London because London is the centre of the UK. And so I took an opportunity after a year in my first job to move to the south. Worked again in an agency, and I loved that because it was complete opposite of executive search. It was doing like commercial office placements, so receptionists and stuff like that, and I just
A lot of
loved it.
action.
Yeah, I love the fast pace. Absolutely love the fast pace of it. I love talking to people who were a bit more like me,
Yeah.
normal people, from all different kind of ways of life, and I really, really enjoyed that. It was a very, very strange experience though for me working down south because I felt at times like I stuck out like a sore thumb because I don't know if you realize, Zubin, but I speak with quite a strong northeastern English accent and not your typical kind of British accent, and that's how everybody spoke. Where I worked in quite an affluent area, so I was constantly reminded by people that, oh, you're not from here. I'm like, yeah, yeah, I'm not from here, and people had a lot of, I suppose, ideas about me, about my intelligence, about my morals, because I was from the northeast of England. So that was strange that I felt very othered and judged because of where I was from. But I pushed through because that's all I'd ever known to do. I'm a grafter, I'm a worker, and I work hard. Um, an opportunity then came up to join an organization in their in-house team. I wasn't so sure about it at the time because I was like, is in-house recruitment where failed recruiters go to die? I'm not sure. I'm a really good agency recruiter and I like it. Is it going to be too slow? But I thought, you know what, keep pushing yourself, Faye. So I went and joined that organization and yeah, developed my career from there. I stayed there for 15 years. In that time, I progressed through, I got into management, looked after the commercial operation. I
This
then
is
really,
at Capita,
yeah,
correct? Capita.
Yeah. I think where I really cut my teeth was when I joined Contractorland. So I managed essentially a desk of over 1,000 limited company and umbrella contractors who worked for Capita, and the team obviously supporting that. I think I had about 10 consultants just constantly sourcing for our contractors. Um, and then I got married, started my family, and so continued progressing, working through Capita, landed proper in the software side of things, heading up hiring for software. At our peak, we were actually the largest software house in Europe.
Hmm.
And I oversaw in the region of, I think it was about 1,500 permanent vacancies that my team were hiring every year. So it
Is that
was,
just in
yeah,
the UK?
yeah,
Wow.
predominantly the UK. Yeah, yeah, it's huge organization. It was a huge organization. And I loved it. I grew up there. I learned so much there, constantly evolving. It grew by acquisition. So it was very much, for anybody who's worked in this space, where you're acquiring, you get news one day that you've acquired, you've suddenly, you've got to go, you've got to manage the change with the employees, but you've also got to manage the change with the processes. And I love that. I love thinking on my feet, acting fast, doing what I can to move fast and support the organization. So I did 15 years there. In that time, thinking about my 10th year, we made a decision to actually move back to the northeast of England. That's where my family were. We didn't have any family support down in the south. So I was very lucky because Capita has always really been a remote first for their talent acquisition organization. So I could take my job with me and move back to the glorious northeast of England where I had family support and where I could raise my children. So after 15 years there, 3 children in, I was like, do you know what? I know this place so well. I've learned so much. Could probably do another 15 years here. I think maybe I had a midlife crisis because I was like, oh my goodness, what if I die in this place and I've never tried anything else? I'm about pushing myself. I'm about challenging myself. Could I cut it in another organization? So I had to put my big girl pants on and I was like, I'm going to do it because if not now, when? So I started to look for opportunities. Um, and that's how I ended up in my current role. So now I look after our EMEA hiring and the go-to-market hiring for APJ. We have a team who are absolutely amazing at sourcing talent for Avanti, and I've really thrived. I get to, aside from obviously my day job of leading on hiring, doing what I love, work across different cultures, learning about people, supporting the organization to achieve our North Star goals and mission. I also get to lead our diversity recruitment committee, which is something I'm very proud of, where we look to instigate global recruitment initiatives across Avanti in order to be a place where everybody feels welcomed, no matter what your background. We want to be
Right.
a place where everyone
Right.
belongs, and I drive that through recruiting initiatives. So yeah, that's
And I
that's
remember
me
we were
today.
we were on a phone call when
Yeah.
the whole topic came up, and we were talking about diversity, and we were discussing candidates, and I was telling you about how much we as a company are focused. We make it a point to have at least wherever possible to have female candidates on the slate, if you may.
Mm.
Um, and then we had switched, and then I'd sent you that picture about what Singapore
Love
is
that.
dealing. You're obviously part of a very worthy cause. I'm kind of deviating from my standard interview pattern, if you may. And maybe I'll do that with a question. Some people say there are many defining moments in life. For some people, there's one. Is there anything that stands out in all the things that you're doing today? Is there anything that stands out for you as a defining moment for what you've become today as a person? I mean, I can think of leaving home for a girl, going to Liverpool and then going to Yorkshire, living alone. Those are all defining,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah. I think, I suppose, I mean, with regards to kind of, I can answer that too, is because I can talk about kind of the defining moments that have led me to always push. And I think that literally was my mom's parenting, in that, you know, she was always, you know, instilling in me, you are good, you are great. Nothing that happens is your fault as long as you push and try and be the best. So that always drove me in that sense. I think for with regards to diversity and what led me to actually create my role and my commitment to being an ally to underrepresented groups, there's a couple of things, but the real defining moment for me was when I realized the impact that I can have as a talent leader with diversity, and I could bring the two together. I'd always felt a strong sense of justice and a want. I think if you've been vulnerable yourself, you have an affinity with vulnerable groups, and I have been vulnerable for a significant part of my life. So I always felt an affinity. I always had a really strong moral compass as well, and a really good sense of what's right and what's wrong. And something I carry with me is, I think it was Gandhi, don't quote me on that, but I think it was Gandhi who said, like, the mark of any society or culture is how its most strongest and powerful treat its most weakest and vulnerable.
yes,
And yeah, and that really aligns with my thinking. So I've always had like a commitment to serving people. And because of my own journey and holding up a mirror to myself, I've always realized that, you know, there's there is so much potential in everybody, you know, but sometimes people need help with that. And my defining moment for realizing that was, I was tasked maybe about 7 years ago now every year we brought in an intake of grads into the software business. And I'd tasked my team to ensure that we hired a 50-50 split for that year's software intake of graduates. And so we started the process, and it was great. The applications came in, and we were seeing a good kind of split of about 50-50, actually, interestingly enough, applications.
which is
But
very, very interesting given how low
we
um,
gen
the
we
diversity.
gendered, we were really good. We targeted, we gendered, like, sort of called it the adverts and stuff. So we had a really, really good split. But for some reason, what I was seeing is between the recruiter interview and booking them in for the assessment center, there was this massive, massive drop off. It was something like, well, like 90% males to 10% females were getting through to assessment center. And I was like, whoa, that doesn't tally up. Why are we, where's the gap? Where's the delta between them applying? And so I've looked into the data, and what I could what I could say is they weren't even necessarily getting interviews with my recruiters. They were just being Females were just being dismissed straight at application point. So when I spoke to the team about that, I said, "What? Why is that?" And they said, "Well, look." And as we went through, we looked. Females historically don't do information technology type degrees. They tend to take more humanities type subjects. And one of our absolute
Ah,
essential criteria to work in software was that you needed an IT related degree. And I was like, oh, and it's so funny because I mean, that was 7-10 years ago. And even now, I worked with a university recently and went to their tech school, and it was again 100% male sitting in that room. So I was like, oh my goodness, what can we do? And so I spoke to our managers, and in the end, my solution was quite simple. We opened the degree criteria up for females. So we looked at what degrees would have a natural affinity, and we landed on people who had done history or who had done music. Because history, obviously, you've got that research, that precision, that ability to probe, which has a nice affinity with what we were looking for from a skill set, particularly in the security space. And then we also targeted females who had done music degrees, because if you can read music, you can essentially read another language, you can code, you can write and code because there's a strong
Interesting.
affinity with those skills. That was my light bulb moment because then I realized the power of equity and the fact that for me, sitting within talent acquisition, I had that power. Until that point, I'd always thought to drive diversity, commitment, strategy, initiatives through a business, it has to come from the top, and a leader has to tell you how to be diverse. And I thought, no. And that tipped my thinking upside down. And I thought, no, actually, we've all got the power within us to do this. And if we all make a change, if we all give an inch, many, many inches make a mile. And that's how we're going to advance as a society in closing the gap and the gender inequalities as a society, is if we all look at ourselves, hold up a mirror and look at what opportunities are there for equity and how we can develop our allyship. So from that point, that was a defining moment for me because I realized the impact we could have. Actually, we ended up hiring, I think it was about 70% female, 30% male that year, which
Awesome.
was unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And that was my defining moment where I was like, oh, I can make a difference. I have this power within me to make a difference. And so does everybody else. We just need to get everybody on board. No one's going to tell us how to do it. We've just got to go out there, be bold, and do it.
Was there a lot of pushback?
No,
No,
no, not at all.
which is lovely to hear
Yeah.
because clearly everybody was on board. People understood this needs to be done.
Yeah. And do you know, Stephen, I don't think anybody writes themselves in life to be the bad guy. I think really everybody, and especially when you're having a talent conversation, everybody wants to do the right thing. Everybody wants to take an opportunity and do something good. Diversity, I think sometimes when you talk to people, they get a bit scared because they're scared they might do the wrong thing. But actually, sometimes if we just take a chance, you can get an absolutely beautiful result from it. And
Yep.
so I've carried that through work now, and that's something that I take daily into work now is where's the opportunities? Where's the opportunities to be bold? Where are the opportunities to give equity to an underrepresented group and open up opportunity? I went out there and went for every opportunity. How can I support other people to get those opportunities there so that they too can succeed and thrive in their lives?
I was going to ask if there were setbacks, and you kind of preempted that in the point you made about there not being enough female candidates with STEM qualifications, or a degree in science technology. Um, that continues to be a trend today as well. I think it's still a 70-30 or a 75-25 enrollment.
Yeah.
What do you think can be done? I mean, this is this comes down to really the very being of a personality, right? I mean, if someone's not interested in we make fun, right, about boys and their toys. I mean, guys will have 2 phones, 3 phones, they'll have a laptop, they'll have an iPad. I know so many, I'm one of them. But what do you think can be done to promote technology it's easy to address. So when you talked about the underrepresented groups, right, and that could be ethnic, that could be
Mhm.
financially deprived, and those are easier to address. But when you're talking of a whole gender, and how do you get that? What do you think? What do you think companies or even societies can do?
Yeah, two-pronged attack. I mean, firstly, to talk to employers and what I think employers can do, it is about equity and it is about potential. I think skills-based hiring, and there's a lot of employers, certainly we ourselves do it at Avanti, we design the role
Yep.
rather than design the list of experience that you have. And I think it's imperative for employers to look at that if they want to start building a more balanced workforce, particularly within the tech sector, which we know is painfully underrepresented for females. So I think we've got to look at that opportunity of where can we bring in populations of female and help support them, career path them to grow and give them the equity that they need. As a society, I mean, certainly I see this in the UK, there is change. I mean, our government is doing a lot with regards to pushing and promoting STEM careers for females. So myself, I've done some work as a STEM ambassador, and I know there's a lot being done around that. But I think wider supporting women's issues and the things that are predominantly women's issues is important, and holding up a mirror to things where the patriarchy lessens women is really, really important. I've recently been appointed as a board trustee for IDA, which is the Employers Initiative and Domestic Abuse
Yes.
in the UK. And we support employers to support their employees who are experiencing domestic abuse. And I think as a society, supporting women with issues that might bar them from the workplace is important. I think also valuing female attributes is something that if you ask any woman in any leadership position, there will be some point in her career where her feminine traits have been questioned or put as a negative. And so I think we've got to continuously as a society look for the opportunities to celebrate women and help women, give them the equity to step them up. Um, I'm going to give you a really interesting example. Many years ago, so when I'd fallen pregnant with my eldest child, and I was at an all hands, and it was announced that they were going to start career development for people, so that we're going to have more robust career pathways in place. And I was like, oh my goodness, amazing! This is literally like, this is what I want. This is an amazing opportunity. I can't wait. And then at the same meeting, they announced, and the first person that'll be doing this career pathways is, and it was a male peer of mine. So I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. So afterwards, I approached my boss about it, and I was like, look, this is absolutely amazing. This is so, so exciting. Can I ask, how was the decision made to give the male the opportunity first? You know, I never heard about this. Why was I not picked? And they just looked at my bump and said, well, you've got other priorities. And I just thought then like, oh my goodness. And that was a really, it was a really, really upsetting moment for me. But it has also shaped the fact that I think women, just by virtue of being women, the fact that we carry children, are so often held back around these preconceptions that, well, you've got other things to focus on, Faye, you're having a baby, you surely don't want to focus on your career. And that was a woman making that presumption for me. So I think we need to get to a place where as a society, women are supporting and promoting women. We accept the fact that women might sometimes need equity because we do tend to be the predominant caregivers, but also, support us in that we might still want to have a successful career, not just necessarily sit there with our baby the whole time and exit the workplace. So I look forward to seeing. I've got a daughter. She's 5 and she's phenomenal. She's so strong. She's like, I can do anything I want to do. And I look forward to a different world for her. And I hope that in a way I'm contributing a small contribution nonetheless, but I hope I'm contributing
I have
to make a
absolutely
more
no
equitable
doubt
world.
about that. I have absolutely no doubt. I think you know, every little effort counts, and what you're doing is a lot more than a
Yeah.
little effort. But I think men are also guilty of assuming too much, being too presumptuous about what I think they should just leave the decision of what they want to the women and how they than to make the decisions for them.
Yeah, I love that. Do you know, I actually, if it comes to allyship, I think male allyship is just as important as female allyship. I think females have got to support females, but I also think like men have got to be invited to the party as well. I think it's a big mistake to cut men out of being allies to female, because your men as well have got to support. I've had some amazing male mentors throughout my life. And they've been absolutely critical in helping me succeed in my career. I don't think we should cut men out of allyship. They've got to be there for allies because they've got to support us as well in order to make a fairer society for us all. So I think men are critical to supporting women.
Well, all they've got to remember is they're all and you talked about male mentors, and I'm almost tempted to say I bet they were all dads to daughters
Oh,
as well. Maybe not, but I every time I think of this, right, my involvement quotient, if you may, has gone
yeah.
up as I've seen my three daughters grow up. And you made
Mm,
a very, very good point. And the other thing one needs to also be cautious of is this shouldn't just be about, I mean, it's one thing I tell all three of them is never ever, um, you don't just take something if you got it because of your gender, make yourself good enough for it, you know,
love that.
work
Yeah,
hard, work
yeah,
hard, make yourself worthy of it.
yeah.
And because otherwise you're being set up to fail. And that is something one needs to be very careful of. You talked about mentors. Tell us about one or two of them, you know, and how they were key mentors to you in your career.
Do you know the first person who springs to mind is actually when I was 14, 15, and one of my teachers at school, and he had a daughter, um, and he was instrumental, I think, in supporting and shaping me to get to think that actually I can go out there and reach my potential. Um, I was going through a really particularly challenging time at home, really challenging when I was 15, and he ran the drama club at my school, so naturally I was in the drama club. And I always remember one time I'd always, I immersed myself in extracurricular activities and stuff, but hadn't thought too much about the future. And remember once he sat me down and he just took the time to sit me down and he said, "Faye, you're 15 now, so you leave school next year. What are you thinking of doing next?" I said, "Oh, I don't really know." I was like, "I'm probably have to go and get a job or something." And he was like, "Well, have you thought about going to drama school?" He was like, "You're really good. You should think about it." I just, I started laughing. I was like, "Yeah, girls like me don't go to don't go to drama, Mr. Lynch. That's not an option." And I always remember to this day, he got really like disappointed. Was the disappointment in his voice? And he was like, "Faye, I'm not hearing that from you. Absolutely not." He was like, "I hate this. You're thinking that just because you're from where you're from and where you're on your life now, that you can't do that." He's like, "You can do anything that you put your mind to, but you've got to grit your teeth and get through and do it." He was like, "I never want to hear that from you again." And that was one of those moments in my life. I've carried that through with me because I didn't have any strong male family members to support me. So really that was the first piece of male guidance that, I'd ever really got with regards to my life. And that really, really shaped me. Him just taking the time to sit down and listen and say, "No, you can do it," and to give me that encouragement to keep on going was absolutely just so, so valuable for my life and really, really shaped my life.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Mm.
Do you have a mantra, like something your go-to, a mantra, something you tell yourself every time, um, every time you've been challenged or every time you felt down or need to push forward? What's your, maybe it's a song,
Yeah.
maybe it's something else. I don't know. You studied
Do you know
in
what I do? I do find I like I like to give my years themes as I progress in my career. So I'm like, it's like my way of setting objectives for myself, personally and professionally, as to what I'm going to persist with that year. But something that became my mantra, because I think mantras can be a bit seasonal, depending on what you need, those
oh,
words just what you can get you through. I always remember in lockdown, COVID hit, and oh gosh, I picked up this horrendous project that I said I would do, but it was a national effort project. So I was like, I know it's worth sitting at home with my small children, trying to educate them and do a 17-hour day. It's worth it. But I remember talking to my team at the time, and we were so pressured. And I was like, look, the only thing we can do is just be nice and work hard. And they're like, what? And that actually evolved. And it's so funny
Beautiful.
because it is actually, you can get postcards and stuff of it. Work hard and be nice to people.
It's as simple as that.
Work hard and be nice to people.
It is as,
Um,
it's incredible. It's so
do you know,
powerful.
I think that, and actually, I just think like no matter where you get in your career, I always think it's really important to remember kind of like, we are all just trying to achieve something. And actually, if you're a decent person and you're nice to people, people are going to get on board with you and are more inclined to help you along the way. So if you work really, really hard, be nice to people. Do you know what? You can set out and achieve anything. You don't have to come in and, even if you're highly, highly pressured, and COVID was so, so pressured, we don't need to replicate when other people are shown stressed and pressured and negative behaviors. If we just keep our head and we keep our calm and we push through, we can deliver some great results. So I carry that with me, especially under times of pressure as well. And if people around me are maybe getting a bit agitated, a little bit negative, I'm like, just remember, just be nice to people. You don't know what they're facing in their lives. So be nice to people and let's work together. Let's collaborate in order to get a great result.
You know, you're a mind reader of sorts because you tend to answer whatever I'm going to come up with next, in whatever I've asked you. Because I was actually going to ask you, and maybe you still have something to add to that question. I was going to ask you, what advice would you give to people who are either starting off in their careers, who are probably not sure, who are probably scared? It's not easy being a youngster today. I think it was simpler previously. Now the choices are difficult. I mean, I remember when I was growing up, it was all about just getting a degree and getting a job. That was it, whatever you got. But now it's just like, will this be right or that be right? And I meet a lot of people mid-career. I mean, we're in recruiting, right? So we meet people who are in their 30s, 40s. We're not sure of where this is all going. Um, any other advice for them?
Yeah, I am. And I say this to my eldest son, I'm obsessed with the power of mentorship. And I wish I'd almost learned that earlier in my career. Um, talk to people and talk to the senior people, pick up the phone to them, reach out to them, ask their advice, ask people, be insatiably curious, be thirsty for knowledge, and reach out and politely ask for people's time because people will give you their time. People love to talk. People will give you their time, learn from them, find out how they got there because hearing about other people's challenges and adversity or just sounding board stuff off them, it can just clear your path. What's it people say? Problem shared is problem halved. And I think that's so valuable when you start your career. And I wish I had done more of that because I think I might have ended up where I wanted to be, probably a lot less painfully and a lot less and a lot quicker, rather than just trying to always muddle through myself, not being my authentic self, feeling I had to act a part. Actually, I should have just leveraged the relationships I had and just asked for advice. So do that. Ask people the questions. You'd be surprised. Everyone will give you their time. People love supporting people. No one sets out to be the bad guy. They'll give you their time. Leverage those relationships.
That's a very positive piece of advice because I think that's one of the things that stops a lot of people from
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah.
Just a fear of, and if they say no, they say no. Find someone else. There will be
Yeah.
somebody out there. I mean, it's just fantastic. Faith, thank you. You've taken time out. I have a whole list of questions that I follow, but this conversation is just meandered into something so wonderful. A wonderful, wonderful conversation. It's so good to know you. There's another thing that you are good at, and that's empathy and fairness. I think I work with a lot of talent acquisition leaders,
Mm.
and very few that I think see it from. Most companies are nice to candidates for their brand, but you are just nice. You're just a fair person.
You've
Uh,
got to be sincere to people because I mean, I always think, if you're going to go and work somewhere and spend 40 hours of your week somewhere, it needs to be the right place for you. I mean, at my
yeah.
employer now, we talk about being a destination company, and that feeds like a lot of our activities that we do because we're like, what does destination mean? And we're like, it starts with it's got to be the right destination for
Yeah.
you. So, and you don't find out, by grilling people or intimidating people. You know, when you interview them, you just get to know the person, what makes them thrive, because you want people. I want people. I don't want to go to bed at night think, well, I placed that person, but they're going to hate it here. I want people to have, you know, to really enjoy their lives and to thrive. So if I can be part of that and part of their journey, I love
Yep,
that.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Uh, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
And you.
And, look forward to doing a lot of the good work with you.
Thank you so much for inviting me today. It was really strange being on the other side. I'm not used to talking so much.
The good news is there's no job waiting at the end of this, so you don't have to worry about the outcome.
My boss will be pleased, I'm sure.